Hi, everyone. This is Frank with Teachly University. In this lecture today, we're going to be discussing the concept of paradigm shifts. So, what are paradigm shifts? Well, paradigm shifts really is when we undergo the process of changing aspects of our personality by overcoming self limiting beliefs and by entertaining new thoughts and ideas that impress upon the subconscious can help us overcome self limiting beliefs and change our personality in a more positive way that can also change our personal reality. When we change our beliefs and change our perceptions of ourselves and the world around us, we begin to see that there's new possibilities, new experiences, new synchronicities occur because we view life in a new way. And more importantly, we view ourselves in a new way because we've developed the confidence to know that we can overcome almost any obstacle and live life the way we want to live it. But that all starts with what we choose to focus on. So by looking at uh, this diagram here, this is borrowed from Bob Proctor's work in discussing paradigm shifts. So we'll be discussing Bob Proctor as well as Abraham Maslow and his hierarchy of needs. And you can see then that in this circle that's split in two, there's that line that cuts across the circle. The top of that circle, representing our mind, is the conscious mind. And the bottom part of that circle is the subconscious. The conscious mind is our intellectual mind. This is where our goal setting comes in, where we come up with ideas. Like, for example, how I'm creating this lecture right now is by using the intellectual mind or the analytical mind. And we use the analytical mind and our five senses. We can see, hear, smell, taste, and touch to help analyze and react to what is going on in our external environment. So therefore, then the intellectual mind is where we can intentionally choose what to focus on. But chances are that most of the things that we choose to focus on goes against our self-interest because of what we experience in our external environment, all the negative news, the social media, the gossip that we talk about or experience with friends and family and coworkers, and negative events that have occurred in our lives. This over time develop into ideas that are impressed on the subconscious. The subconscious mind does not know the difference between what is real or imagined. And if you recall that the vast majority of our habits or habitual behaviors reside in the subconscious mind. So what we consistently impress on the subconscious mind over time shapes our personality. If we consistently believe or focus on an event that makes us feel disempowered or lacking confidence, that event and the way we choose to interpret it over time is a suppressed and present subconscious mind that ultimately shapes our beliefs and thus helps shape our results for better or for worse. So if you recall, the subconscious mind does not know the difference between what is real or imagined. You can recall a negative event that occurred in the past. And even though you're in the present moment and that event has occurred a long time ago, months or even years ago, you feel a physiological response to that event. Maybe you get a rapid heart rate. Maybe you start to sweat a little bit. You get physically uncomfortable because of that event, because there was an emotional intensity behind that event. That emotion as a result of using our senses and how we chose to interpret that event. And by simply reacting to events rather than becoming much more diligent and intentional and self aware of how we can choose to react to that event, by reacting over time, we subconsciously develop these self limiting beliefs that give us the kind of results that we get in our lives. Usually, results that are not the kind of ones that we want. So, to put it another way, it's the ideas that we entertain. Your thoughts can become and are shaped into ideas. And these ideas ultimately cause emotions. Ideas can help make us feel good. If we come up with an idea of creating an amazing business, it can make us feel good because of the possibilities that come along with starting that business. Or maybe the idea that we have the ability to enter more empowering relationships, the idea that we can travel more or achieve more material possessions, whatever idea that's empowering for you, it can create a positive emotion. But because of the analytical mind, we tend to come up with reasons as to why that is not possible. And that's where negative emotions come into play and negative assumptions that ultimately expresses itself through some sort of vibration. And what do I mean by vibration? Well, if you recall that the subconscious mind, I've discussed this in previous lectures, the subconscious mind has to express itself in some way. Our personality has to express itself in some way. And by impressing the subconscious these negative ideas, we develop a negative vibration. And what I mean by vibration is that you can meet certain people and they can give off this negative vibe. You feel uncomfortable around this person. You just don't want to be around them. But then the opposite can occur, that you meet somebody that has a positive vibe. They just exude confidence. You want to be around this person. They walk into a room and just people gravitate towards them. I've met people like this before. And the reason they're like this is because they think a certain way that produces this sort of personality and this vibration. And it is this vibration that is expressed through action. And it is this action that delivers the results, the conditions, the circumstances, and the environment that either are more conducive to what it is that we want or what we don't want. So if we are to achieve then this paradigm shift, to change our personality, it requires then that we practice self-awareness and begin to think and choose the kind of thoughts that we want to entertain. We have that ability. That doesn't mean that it is easy, but it is certainly possible. And as I've said this many times, why meditation, journaling, talking with people that are inspiring, expressing yourself in a more authentic way, taking calculated risks, those are important because they help reshape our personality in a more positive way. And when we impress upon the subconscious more empowering ideas, when we use these higher mental faculties, we can begin to reshape our personality and impress upon the subconscious and this universal mind what it is that we want. And by doing so, then creation is already done. And it's just a matter then of allowing the subconscious, our higher self, to bring forth what it is that we desire through our own actions or through synchronicities, new opportunities, new experiences that occur in our lives. Thus, then, we can change our conditions and our circumstances and environment. So then your action causes a reaction, which then alters your results and your personality and so forth. So you can see here how this is all interwoven. But behind all this complexity, to keep this simple, it starts with then choosing the kind of ideas we want to entertain. Be diligent with how you think. Entertain new horizons, new possibilities of what can occur. Don't worry about how you're going to achieve a particular goal, or how you're going to overcome a particular obstacle. Just focus on what you want, or live in the end, as Neville says. When you live in the end and assume the wish fulfilled, by asking yourself empowering questions like, what would it feel like if my dreams came true? You begin to see then that you begin to feel lighter, more empowered, more inspired, because you're no longer trying to force an outcome, because you're living in congruency where your thoughts and actions match your beliefs. So Bob Proctor says that the moment your belief matches with any state, you fuse with it, and this union results in the activation and projection of its plots, plans, conditions, and circumstances. This new state of conscious awareness becomes your home from which you view the world. It is your workshop, and if you are observant, you will see outer reality shaping itself upon the model of your imagination. So the power of imagination here and harnessing this power is crucial. What we choose to imagine can determine the kind of results that we get in our life. If we imagine worst case scenarios, if we imagine the disappointments and bad experiences of the past, if we constantly think about how we're not good enough to achieve a particular result, if we're always imagining feelings or ideas of lack, then you can imagine that you're going to feel disempowered. You're going to feel lousy, depressed, anxious, fearful. But when we live in congruency, meaning that we begin to listen to what it is that we want, we listen to our intuition, And this again is not easy because we live in a world where there's so many distractions. But when we step back for a moment and we begin to listen to what it is that we want, we listen to our intuition. That's when we activate this congruency because we're not trying to force something. Rather, we're listening to this universal mind. We're listening to our higher self that knows best. And we allow the higher self to do the work. There's a quote that Wayne Dyer used a lot: be still, for I am God. Or he used this affirmation quite often in his work that he promoted. When you affirm that be still, that I am God, you are acknowledging that you have God's infinite power within you, this infinite intelligence within you. And by becoming aware of it and developing a relationship with it, your problems begin to fade away because you outgrow them, because you are surrendering to a greater mind. And by surrendering, it means that you're no longer trying to suppress your authentic self, even your negative emotions, which do play a very important role. If you're feeling depressed or anxious, accept it for what it is and move on. And when you do this enough times, we release these shackles that have been holding the authentic self back. And through self-actualization then, and when by surrender enough times, we are release the authentic self. So in looking at Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and I've used this hierarchy in my previous lectures, we can see the bottom of this pyramid, this hierarchy, are basic physiological needs, such as food, water, warmth, rest, and security and safety. And for the most part in our modern world today, most people can satisfy these basic needs. For the most part. That's not always the case, but we can say for the purpose of this lecture, for the vast majority of us can satisfy these basic needs. But the problem is that most of us spend our time in survival, satisfying these basic needs. And when we're constantly living in survival, it doesn't give us the time or the mental space to create. We neglect the other more important, higher level needs that are essential if we are to live our best life. And we can see that above, once we satisfy these basic psychological, physiological needs, then we have psychological needs such as belongingness, intimate relationship, friends, meaning, purpose, the feeling of accomplishment. Again, relationships are very important because we are social creatures. And then we see that the top of this hierarchy, the pinnacle of human achievement, of human expression, is self-actualization, when we are achieving one's full potential, including creative activities. This is where we become our authentic self. We're no longer trying to hold back. We're in congruency where the mind and body are one. The conscious mind and the subconscious mind are one. We're acting out on our instincts. We're not afraid to take chances and take calculated risks. And we're living life on our terms. We're not being deterred by what is happening outside of us. We are holding on to the vision of a better future, regardless of what is happening in our external world. And that is true genius, when we get the kind of results that we want without necessarily bowing down to our circumstances. We hold on to that vision regardless of what is happening around us. So to quote Abraham Maslow, he says, as self-actualized people live more in the real world of nature than in the man-made mass of concepts, abstractions, expectations, beliefs, and stereotypes that most people confuse with the world. What Maslow is saying is that in order for us to become self-actualized, to transcend and overcome our problems, we can't solve our problems by working within those very problems. We have to overcome them by outgrowing them. And we outgrow them by unleashing this real self that has been buried within us. Because unfortunately, because of social conditioning, conventional wisdom, even if we're brainwashing in a way, and we can look at Maxwell Maltz's psychocybernetics. We've all been brainwashed or hypnotized in some way to indulge in beliefs that go against our self-interest. We allow other people to determine how we should live our lives and how we should think. So self-actualized people do the opposite, that they focus more on living out their vision and being their authentic selves, no matter what is happening around them, or based on the opinions of others. That is real genius. They don't entertain these concepts or abstractions that there's a lot of vagueness out there and confusion as to how we should live our lives. Only you can really determine that. Only you can determine what is possible or impossible. That is for you to decide. And when you decide that and make the decision and be clear about what it is that you want and take action, no matter how it is that you feel, even if you feel fear, you do it anyway. We keep overcoming and overcoming and overcoming until eventually we remove these barriers that allow us to be self-actualized, where we are not afraid to express our authentic self. So Maslow says that it looks as if there was a single ultimate goal for mankind, a far goal toward which all persons strive. This is called variously by different authors: self-actualization, self-realization, integration, psychological health, individuation, autonomy, creativity, productivity. But they all agree that this amounts to realizing the potentialities of the person. That is to say, becoming fully human, everything that person can be. We've all asked ourselves, what is the meaning of life? What is our purpose here on earth? And I would argue that purpose, and I think Maslow is alluding to this, our purpose in life is to be our authentic self, to be the best we can be, to express ourselves from the positive to even the negative. Be who you really are. And when we unleash our authentic self, we unleash this universal intelligence, this energy that's been bottled within us for a long time. And as we become autonomous, meaning that we live life based on our terms, from the career and money that we make, to the relationships that we're involved with, from the activities and hobbies that we choose, to the places that we go, we can enjoy all aspects of our lives. And I think that and especially when it comes to our careers, we focus a lot on time management or work-life balance. But really, what we should be focusing on is not work-life balance, but how we can get the most out of life, where work doesn't feel like work. And if you look at the most successful people, Warren Buffett comes to mind. He doesn't even consider what he does work. And that says a lot. It speaks a lot of speaks volumes, considering that he's one of the wealthiest individuals in the world, because he loves what he does. It's not work for him. He's making the most out of what he has. So that's something to consider then in thinking about how we're going to craft our lives. Not about time management or work-life balance, but how can we get the most out of our lives? How can we achieve more? And how can we get everything we want? And I believe we can do this. But that starts with ultimately how we think and what we choose to focus on, and whether or not we'll make the decision to be who we really want to be. So every human being has both sets of forces within him. One set clings to safety and defensiveness out of fear, tending to regress backward, hanging on to the past, afraid to grow away from the primitive communication with a mother's uterus and breast, afraid to take chances, afraid to jeopardize what he already has, afraid of independence, freedom, and separateness. The other set of forces impels him forward toward wholeness of self and uniqueness of self, toward full functioning of all his capacities, toward confidence in the face of the external world at the same time that he can accept his deepest, real, unconscious self. So at times what creates self-doubt, stress, and burnout is that these two forces are battling one another. We have one side of our personality that wants to play it safe, and the other side that wants to take risks. And it is this part of the process of personal transformation and achieving a paradigm shift that requires patience. Because we have the spirit which wants to do all these things, and then we have our physical body and physical mind that perhaps is more reluctant to take all these risks. That's why we must be patient with ourselves and realize that we can't bite off more than we can chew. We must take our time. But I believe it was Price Pritchett in his work, The Quantum Leap Strategy, that just making one small decision, one small adjustment, perhaps taking some more risk at work, maybe investing a little more money in the stock market if you want to grow your wealth, or maybe asking an attractive stranger out. I'm using some generic examples, but just making one small adjustment here and there can dramatically transform your life. or making one small decision can help you overcome what may have been years of negative programming. Saying one affirmation for just a couple minutes a day can help you overcome a personality trait that's been holding you back for so long has been giving you grief. But when we unleash the authentic self, then we unleash this force that wants us to become our authentic self, and it creates independence, freedom, and autonomy. And it is this unique self, the higher self, that if we allow it to take over, no longer does life have to feel forced. We're in this state of flow. And if you recall in my lectures in describing flow, flow is where we're in the present moment. We're not trying to force something. It's where talent meets skill. Where we're thoroughly immersed in what it is that we're doing. We're not living in the past or worried about some worst case scenario in the future. We're living in the now. And when we live in the present moment, that's really when the magic happens. And that's when we can achieve these paradigm shifts. And a lot of high level athletes and high risk athletes have reported when they're in these states of flow, they feel godlike. They feel free and independent. They're not afraid of even death because we're in the zone, and there's a lot of physiological mental processes involved here, especially when neurochemicals are released into the body like dopamine, serotonin, norepinephrine, and others. These feel-good chemicals that are released. But I believe there's also something much deeper that occurs when we're in these states of flow, when we tap into these higher mental faculties and this universal intelligence. That when we're in these states of flow for a consistent period of time, something begins to happen where our personality changes without us even realizing it. It becomes effortless. And when you strain less, take your time and be self-aware and affirm every day that what you want is already yours, that you are powerful, that you are feeling euphoric, happy, healthy, wealthy, etc. Not try to force an outcome, but by being your best self and taking action regardless of how you feel. That is how we can achieve paradigm shifts, or by making just one small adjustment can help us radically transform our life for the better. So thank you so much for listening to this lecture. Make sure you hit that subscribe button where you can watch all my lectures on personal growth, creativity, wealth building, and entrepreneurship. Thank you so much. I'll see you in class next time.